We're talking about the deteriorating situation in Iraq. Joining us now from Philadelphia is Bill Roggio. He's a senior fellow at the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies, and with me here in Washington, a senior fellow at the Foreign Policy Institute at Johns Hopkins School of Advanced International Studies, Abbas Kadhim. Gentlemen, thanks to both of you for joining us.
Thanks.
Let's start in Philadelphia. Bill, we just heard the president say in no uncertain terms that he believes that Nouri al-Maliki and the Iraqi government are responsible for the crisis there right now. Maliki may be stung by that criticism, but is he going to get the message? Is he going to engage with the Sunnis now?
I think that time has long passed, but I think the president is incorrect. I mean, the administration is quick to blame Maliki, but the fact is the Obama administration was quick to withdraw from Iraq. The U.S. presence in Iraq provided it was a stabilizing influence and allowed all of the political parties, the Sunnis, the Shia, the Kurds, saw the Americans sort of as the father in the room and were able to resolve their disputes. As soon as the Americans left, that's when you saw the sectarianism. As soon as the Americans withdrew all of the military support that was needed to keep groups like ISIS at bay, then Maliki began turning, became far more political and sectarian. But, this blame Maliki, we're seeing the same thing in Afghanistan. We're going to blame Karzai for all of the failures of the administration.
Abbas, do you believe the United States should have left a significant group of soldiers behind to stabilize the country?
Unfortunately, that was not up to the United States. The Iraqis made emphatic statement that they did not want the more presence of the United States. I would say that it was to the detriment of Iraqi interests, but that was how things went. There is nothing that they should do or they could do other than what they have done. What they should have done, if you were to press me, I think it is to leave a credible Iraqi military behind. They dragged their feet for too long until 2011, not to prepare the Iraqi military.
But that's what they say they did. You know, we often hear, well, we've often heard from the Bush administration especially, as the Iraqis stand up, we'll stand down.
They did not do that. The training of the Iraqi military was a charade, and I believe that some people in the administrations, well, not just one, they were counting on leaving an Iraqi weak military to force the Iraqis to acquiesce to more presence of the United States. That backfired. But when the U.S. left, Iraq did not have any air force to speak of. It did not have armored forces. It did not have any. They had infantry with light weapons and very shabby training, and that I would not dignify that with the word military, the way that Iraq used to have a military. I served in the Iraqi military in the old days as a draftee. We all had to, and nothing that was left behind that resembled what the Iraqi military used to be.
Right, Bill, are you surprised at the speed with which developments have moved in Iraq? The administration here appears to be caught on the back foot. When we listen to the president, he's not taken anything, he's not said anything decisive. He appears to be, scrambling to come up with a proper response to what's going on there.
Yeah, the administration just doesn't want to deal with Iraq, and I think that the response to it, the administration is surprised, but I certainly am not. If you watched ISIS and the jihadist group's operation in Syria, you should have been concerned. I want to quickly address something that Mr. Abbas said. The U.S. actually did leave a competent Iraqi military behind. I had embedded with the Iraqi military multiple times and done numerous patrols and looked at their equipment in Mosul, in Fallujah, in Ramadi, in various parts of Baghdad, various parts of the country. What they didn't have is they didn't have those combat enablers. You're right, the Air Force, the ability to medevac, the ability to logistically resupply. Those are the things that the Iraqi military lacked, and had the U.S. kept things in country, they could have. And it's actually incorrect. The New York Times reported extensively several months ago that the Obama administration really disengaged. Maliki was willing to issue a decree from the Prime Minister's office to keep U.S. forces, but what the administration wanted was they wanted the Iraqi parliament to sign off, and that was not going to happen. So the administration got what it wanted, which was the full withdrawal from Iraq.
But isn't that an agreement that the United States has with other countries where there are U.S. forces? that U.S. forces will not be held liable for, or not subject to prosecution for anything that might happen.
Well, right, but what the Obama administration, they wanted this to be approved by Iraq's parliament. They weren't going to agree with Maliki issuing an executive decree to allow this, which he was willing to do. This is all reported in the New York Times. It's fact.
Right. Abbas, what do you make of the fact that in his address to the media today, the president didn't announce any kind of decision whatsoever? He just said, we're reviewing the situation, I'm looking at the options, I will make a decision perhaps at the end of the weekend.
It is very complicated. The president doesn't want to make a decision on his own. He needs to involve others, especially Congress and his critics. He doesn't want to take the rap for it if anything goes wrong. But I believe that the United States needs to act, and act quickly. In fairness, he said that he has all options open, short of major troops. I don't think Iraq needs major troops right now, but Iraq does need what it did not have. Bill, mentioned that, yeah, it was, he says it was a competent military, but it didn't have logistics and it didn't have air force. Well, logistics is 80% of winning any battle. And if you don't have it, people, logistics lose battles. They might not win them, but they do single-handedly lose them, as the dictum says. So there, but I think that's the reason the United States needs to at least give assurances to boost morale. The biggest problem in Iraq right now is morale more than anything else. And it was disappointing because people were waiting for the president to say something more assuring. He didn't. But I assume that right now, I think the president would soon be prepared to make another statement if things get worse. My biggest problem with the administration's position right now is that they are laying conditions for help and conditions for reforms, for reconciliation. These things take a long time, but the events on the ground don't allow that kind of time. They are moving quickly than the decision. And as you heard from the guest from Iran, I think there is more going on in Iran, and the Iranians are much more ready to jump in and beat the United States to the situation, and that will not be advisable. I would love to see the U.S.
Well, wouldn't that be strange?
interfere.
You'd have the United States and Iran on the same side.
Yes, well, the U.S. and Iran have been on the same side for a long time in Iraq, since 2003, for different reasons, but they have done that so oddly.
Right, you talked about a message of support for the Iraqis, a morale booster, if you like. Bill, I want you to take a listen to what the president said about Iraq, and I guess I could call it the U.S. legacy there. Let's watch.
The United States has poured a lot of money into these Iraqi security forces, and we devoted a lot of training to Iraqi security forces. The fact that they are not willing to stand and fight and defend their posts against admittedly hardened terrorists, but not terrorists who are overwhelming in numbers, indicates that there's a problem with morale. There's a problem in terms of commitment, and ultimately that's rooted in the political problems that have plagued the country for a very long time.
Bill, is the president here telling the Iraqis, it's your problem, we've done our bit, it's up to you right now?
Yeah, it's absolutely the message that he's given the Iraqis. He's basically saying you deserted the field of battle and you're going to get what you deserve, and there's very little that we could do to help you fight. It's not the message the Iraqis need right now. And frankly, the Iraqis need far more than just a message of commitment. They need to see some action. The reality is some air power, and I don't think this is air power that can be launched. This has to be close support type air power. You'd need to base fighters and drones on the ground somewhere at a base in Iraq south of Baghdad, and they need to be operating in close support capacity to hit these ISIS convoys.
Right.
That would be meaningful. Words are going to fall far short of that.
Okay, Abbas, let's look at what the opposition in the United States is advocating. This is the Republican opposition. Yes. This is a senator, a Republican senator. This is what he is advising the U.S. to do.
There is no scenario by which the Iraqi security forces can stop the advancement of this group toward Baghdad. I think American air power is the only hope to change the battlefield equation in Iraq. I know no American wants to send boots on the ground, and I don't feel that that's a solution worthy of consideration at this point. But I have been told by our military commanders the Iraqi army is in shambles, and without some kind of intervention, Baghdad is definitely in jeopardy.
So we have Lindsey Graham. He is a senior Republican senator, a U.S. senator. If the United States starts bombing Iraq again, does it make the situation better, or does it simply galvanize the Sunnis against not just the United States, but against Nouri al-Maliki as well?
For maybe a rare time, I do agree fully with the statement that the senator just made. He's right. We need a stronger commitment. I would probably not call it the U.S. bombing Iraq. The U.S. is going to bomb the places where the ISIS are located, mainly either outside the cities or in places where they are entrenched, mainly in more military areas, and that will help a lot.
But you do run the danger of civilian deaths.
Yeah, well, you know, this is going to happen even if the Iraqis, you know, look what happened in Anbar and Fallujah. That's what happened. But civilians are dying one way or the other, and I think, you know, this will prevent major combat. If it happens in Baghdad, there will be much more civilian death that is going to happen, not to mention the people who are going to be put to death in cities that are, you know, on the Shia side, or cities that have not supported ISIS. So this is not just an easy thing. And by the way, you know, I believe that what we are looking for is, you know, the kind of an ounce of prevention, and that's what is important. I believe if the United States grants its credibility of air power right now, it will raise the morale, and then it will, you know, the situation will not escalate to a point where you have to do heavy bombardment and a lot of civilian casualties.
Okay, we're going to have to leave it there, gentlemen. Thanks for joining us.